Good morning, everybody. It's great to see you all this morning. We partly thought perhaps it was too early in the day and too late in the festival, so we're really delighted to see you here this morning. We're going to keep it quite informal. Sit down. If you need me to stand up or us to stand up, just shout, "Stand up, would you?" And we'll do that for you. But we're going to have a kind of relaxed time for an hour or so while we talk with you. So my name is Richard Davidson-Houston. I'm the head of All 4 and of digital content at Channel 4, and this is...
I'm Issac, Densu, commissioning editor of Shorts.
And I'm Jody Smith, I'm also a commissioning editor of Shorts.
What we want to do in the next hour or so is give you the information and the insight that you need in order to be in the best possible place to increase the likelihood you might get commissioned by us for All 4. The way that we're going to do that is I'll give you a bit of background as to what All 4 is, why it exists, and what we're trying to do with it. And then Isaac and Jody will tell you, as it were, the stories about the stories. They'll tell you what we've commissioned and why we've commissioned that, and how what we've learned, what's gone well, and what hasn't gone well. But just to wake us up, and before we get going, let's, Dean, if we could play that first DVD. So a bit of background on All 4. So all of the broadcasters, ourselves included, and the broadcaster responsible for this excellent line, have done a good job in the last 5 and 10 years of providing the opportunity and making it possible for people to watch TV shows that they've missed. And we've done a great job, I think, of telling everybody just how well we've done at that. And 4OD and iPlayer, ITV Player, Demand 5 and others have become household names and have done a good job, as I say, of mopping up that attention that's come as a consequence of people missing TV shows. So that's been great. And the question, obviously, is, well, why would you change 4OD as one of those products that's been doing ostensibly so well? So I'm going to explain the context within which we decided to change 4OD to All 4, and that really there are 5 reasons, 5 challenges. The first one of which is that the inheritance that 4OD gets, or got, and that iPlayer and those other products get, is actually from the television world. Now that's a great thing. The television world's very big, but it's mature. It's not growing. So if all you're doing is inheriting an audience from an ecosystem that is mature, what you're not doing is inheriting it from the exciting digital world that so obviously is growing so fast, is so famous for growing so fast. You may have picked up, some of you, that iPlayer, the biggest of the broadcaster video on demand services, has, shock horror, not grown year on year. Okay, the headlines, iPlayer hasn't grown year on year. Well, that's not really overly surprising because of iPlayer's fortunes, as 4OD's were, are linked to linear performance, in particular performance of drama and of comedy. So why should it grow year on year when the BBC television channels are big and highly successful, but they're not like they're growing in the extraordinary way that some of the digital publishers are? So no great surprise. And 4OD, or even All 4's fortunes, are, of course, principally driven by the performance of linear TV. So I'll tell you, this week hasn't so far been particularly great for All 4, but next Monday will be a good day. Why? Because Humans will have been on television on Sunday, and it's going to be a huge, I hope, drama launch for Channel 4. The second challenge of 5, and the second reason that 4OD has been replaced, is that catch-up is the primary purpose, the explicit purpose of 4OD, as it is for iPlayer and ITV Player. The thing about catch-up television is that the novelty has gone away. We all expect it to be there, like air, like oxygen. It's just something people expect to be available. And of course, available from whoever can give it to you. It doesn't need to be from Channel 4 or the BBC or ITV. And all of these companies, these television platforms, are all now offering people not only what's on the TV, but what's been on the TV. So the commoditization of catch-up television is another reason why those products, such as 4OD, that all they did really was to offer catch-up TV, need to think about how they continue to be competitive and interesting. The third reason that you have to think, or that explains why we moved on from 4OD, is explained here. I mean, even visually, you can see, I think, the difference between the brands on your left and the brand, which is just one example, on the right. Those brands on the left are perfectly sensible, slightly apologetic. They're the children of the proper brands. They're the children of the linear television brands. They are, in my view, subordinate. And that's okay, because they inherit an audience from where the content is supposed to be. That's to say, linear television. The brand on the right, one of a few, but a very well-known one of a few, doesn't need to explain itself as other, it just is. And what we've tried to do with all four, the brand logo for which is there in the bottom right, is to create a brand that just is. It doesn't need to explain itself as being, oh, you know, computers. The fourth of the 5 reasons is this. This is 4OD on the computer and the tablet and the smartphone. And hopefully it doesn't look too bad to you, but the truth is that 4OD was something that was invented to be viewed on the computer. And Channel 4 got actually quite far ahead of the competition, so to the point that 4OD was in fact much bigger than ITV Player, which, if you know the relative scale of television viewing, is sort of against the laws of nature. It shouldn't have been possible. But we did exceptionally well in rolling out 4OD and marketing it and getting people to come to watch shows on the computer. The downside of that was we inherited a lot of what we'd learned from the computer and imported it into the mobile and the tablet. I dare say if you have, which I'm sure you do, a mobile or a tablet, and you watch video on demand, you choose to watch your content there rather than on your laptop. And that tends to be the case. So we sort of imported an old-fashioned user interface into the tablet and the smartphone, which lend themselves to a different kind of interaction. Oddly, those brands that came later went to the mobile screens first and were therefore slightly better. So we never got as bad as this, but we were sort of struggling with the user interface to the point where it was becoming, it was going this way. Hi, come in. So the question, I suppose, that we decided tipped us over the edge was this. Thinking about 4OD, were we actually getting nice and big, or were we really just distributing attention from one platform, as to say, linear television, to another one, and so moving the audience around? And was all that growth really just the tide rising, and we were just redistributing the same amount of attention we had in the first place? So the sum of all of those questions led us to do something. And that's to say, we replaced 4OD completely with another thing, which we've called All 4. So what to do? Well, first, as I've said, we created an unapologetic brand, a brand that isn't the child of the proper television brands. In fact, in some ways, it's the parent, being, if you're interested in your logos, as a composite of the channel brands of Channel 4. But more importantly, and of course why Issac and Jody are here, we've begun to create other reasons to come to All 4, reasons other than to watch TV shows that you've missed, although that remains incredibly important. And these are they, box sets. So actually, box sets have been available in 4OD for a long time. It's just very few people realize that was the case. In All 4, we bring them much more to the fore, all free, ad-supported, and so meeting that other kind of need that we now know and understand as being called the binge, a new term that we've gotten used to, haven't we, in the last couple of years. So one of the reasons to come to All 4 is to binge on free, ad-funded box sets. Another reason, to watch TV. That's okay, to watch live TV, all the channels, whenever. Another reason, this is a still from a trailer from The Tribe, which is premieres later this week. And all four is we want it to be the best place that there is to come and find out about iconic shows such as this that haven't yet been broadcast. Previews, trailers and extras being one of the facets of all four. Okay? And most relevantly for you and for the session that we're going to get into in a minute is exclusive content. So programs, we call them shorts because they're short. Programs that haven't been on linear TV and won't be on linear television. All of this packaged elegantly into a user interface that we think makes it far easier to use. And it's shorts of all of those things that we're really here to talk about. But I wanted to give you that background so you could understand how they fit strategically, what the context is within which we're commissioning these shows, as well as understanding creatively what we're looking for. So before I hand over to Isaac and to Jody to talk to you about the shows, what we're looking for, and why we've commissioned what we've commissioned, I'm going to give you a few facts that you might want to store away in terms of who's watching what, where, and how. Now, I don't know if those are legible to you, but the pie chart on the right just tells you that these are males and females, men and women, gender split. Both men and women watch our shorts. The chart on the left is more interesting because if you add up the large blue portion and the burgundy portion, you get to 74%. That's nearly 3/4 of the audience are under 34, which is a pretty remarkably young audience, definitely when compared to any linear television channel. So a very young audience, and you'll hear Isaac and Jody talk about how important that is in deciding what we're commissioning, understanding that we're commissioning for this very young, skewing audience. In terms of where these shows get watched, well, still a third, despite what I said earlier, still a third of these shows get watched on computers, laptops or desktop computers. A third on, there's a tablet there, but mobile devices, tablet devices or phones. And, somewhat surprisingly, a third on smart televisions. Okay? So we have all four smart TV apps on Samsung Smart TV and on Xbox and other such devices. The significant thing to take away, though, is that 2/3 of this viewing, that's to say the computer viewing and the tablet and smartphone viewing, 2/3 of the viewing is on personal devices. Almost certainly one person watching at a time, probably with headphones on. Okay? I think the context of that viewing experience is very, very different to the context of viewing in a group on a television. So this is the last bit from me for now, which is the FAQ of the very basics of what we're talking about when we're commissioning shorts for all four. Just 3 points. We tend to commission shows in batches of 6 episodes, 6 at a time. And when we've commissioned, let's call it a series, we push them all out at once, all at the same time. They're all available. Okay? Each of those episodes, each of the 6 episodes are about 5 minutes long. That's not a law, but 5 minutes is a good guide. So I don't think we've had any episodes less than 3 minutes long. We've not gone over 10 minutes, but so 5 minutes is kind of the mode there. And the target price, about £3,000 an episode. Okay? So these aren't television production budgets. These are inexpensively produced episodes of shorts specifically for all four. This is the point where half of you walk out. No. Good. Okay. So that's the kind of background. I could try to tell you why 4OD went away, if that's interesting. The strategic context within which commissioning exclusive content is important to broadcasters. How broadcasters, in my view, sort of boxed themselves in with this marvellous world of catch-up and thought, hang on, is this what the consultants would call a zero-sum game? We've just moved people from A to B, but A plus B equals exactly what A was in the first place. So maybe that's a problem when you've got all these other amazing publishers growing on the sides. And I've tried to explain kind of the very basics of what shorts are to make sure that we're all in the right room. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Jody to carry on.
Great.
I'm going to give you this, Jody.
Oh yes, of course, the buttons. So hi everyone, thanks a lot for coming. So Isaac and I are going to talk a bit more about specifics of what we've commissioned recently, why we like it, how it came about, and then go into detail about how you can pitch the sort of stuff we're looking for, also the sort of stuff we're not looking for, and of course the all-important slide at the very end, which is how you get in contact. And so, spoiler alert, you email us ideas. It's quite simple. There's one email address and that's coming off at the very end. I think it's useful to say that if you haven't worked with a commissioning editor before, we're your sort of one point of contact. You'll email us and we'll get back to you, we hope, fairly quickly with a yes or no. Often how we like to work is you might send us an idea that's kind of right for us, and we'll have a bit of a conversation about how we might make it work well for the audience. And normally the next logical step is we might give you a few grand, like 3 or 4 grand, to actually go ahead and do a pilot. And that's not normally a pilot we transmit or publish. That's often one to sort of test the concept, and also it kind of helps us get a bit of a template for how the rest of the series should maybe work out. And we're a really small team as well. There's 3 of us who are commissioning original short form. There's me, Isaac, and Adam G. You might have seen around the conference because he's been doing about 10 panels. So he's also commissioning with us as well. So even though we sit within the much larger commissioning team within Channel 4, and we all discuss ideas, we're a little kind of agile hub, we like to think of ourselves as. So if you email us, we try and get back to you pretty quickly. So so I think what would be quite useful is we've put together a clips reel. It's 8 minutes long, so sit back, which shows a few clips of some recent programs, and then we'll talk in a bit more detail about those. So apologies there, we seem to have lost the very top and the very bottom of the screen, so you missed most of the titles, or unless you like your sort of dingbat style puzzles and can decipher some of them. But that's a big selection of work. I mean, we've only been commissioning for the past kind of year, and we started publishing in August, so we have quite a big body of work already, and we're generally publishing a new series every week. And as Richard said earlier, we normally commission batches of 6. We don't stagger them, we put them all up at once, as we often find that when people click through to watch one, they'll watch another, and then hopefully another and another. So it really benefits having the whole series up there. And let's face it, people aren't going to put a calendar reminder in to come back and watch a 3-minute film a week later. So there's not much point in really staggering them. We haven't really done anything topical yet. So it's if we have series which are that are generally quite timeless, why not put them all up at once? And out of that body of work, we've worked with 26 different indies over the course of the last year who have commissioned series from, and 12 of those, so almost half, are totally new to Channel 4, and many of them have never worked with a broadcaster before either. So we work with the bigger indies who are already producing TV content for us, and then down to sort of single shooter directors who have previously not really done any work for hire. So it's a real mix of people.
So I'm going to talk to you about a few of the titles that we have published so far and are soon to publish. As you can all tell, I think one of the things that worked really well for us in shorts is factual. We're in a factual space, and docs work really well in a short space. So you could see there was a range of docs as well. So you had some light humor docs versus quite intense docs versus a spectacle doc at the very end, which was a fusion of tech and storytelling the documentary way. So just looking at this, in your bottom corner, the gentleman at the bottom there with his fists kind of aggressively looking at you is something that I commissioned recently called Disabled Fight Club. Now, just to give you a bit of background into why I commissioned this and how it came about, first and foremost, Big Deal Films are a new production company. I've never worked with a broadcaster before, let alone Channel 4. So for me, it was very exciting to get new talent through the door. They had pitched to our docs team, And our docs team had then passed them on to the Alpha Fund, our diversity team, because we're really big on diversity at the channel. They were awarded a bit of money to shoot a pilot, but what they found quickly was actually it didn't really work in the long form space. So they got in contact with me, and I thought, this is a really interesting area. So the first thing we did was, right, this is not a film about disability. Actually, how do we subvert it? This is a film about fighters that live with disabilities rather than disabled people fighting. So that was our first step in terms of honing in on that narrative. And I guess the reason why I talk about that in that way is because it is a very collaborative process in shorts. So what we tend to do is just send us a top line idea and we will work with you. If it feels right for our audience, we'll work with you to hone it down and to give it that shape that would essentially work well for shorts. So in particular, this gentleman here, Matthew Thorne's story is quite interesting. He's a man that essentially went for an operation to remove an abscess on his spine, which went horribly wrong and left him with a buzzing sound in his head that he's lived with for the past 15 years. Now, what's really interesting about him is he feels no pain, he feels no fear, and he's never intimidated. So this has led him to get involved in bare knuckle boxing, which is a really intense world and quite squeamish at times. And it was really interesting to see his story played out, and this is one of the darker stories that I've actually come across, but at the same time has this aspirational edge of a man that seemingly life has gone wrong for him, kind of trying to reclaim back his life through this idea of fighting, essentially. And for me, I think the most important thing is, I mean, just a year ago, I was sitting where you were. So I was a filmmaker trying to get shorts commissioned in this space. And I think that the most interesting thing I've come across since I've been a commissioner is just understanding the channel and understanding what the channel wants and what the channel makes. I think one of the naive mistakes I made was, oh, this video's on YouTube and has 10 million hits. Channel 4 should be doing that. And essentially, no, because they live in a different space. And I think Richard explained it beautifully in terms of actually, what I like to tend to tell audiences is, or indies I work with is, you have a kid who's really disruptive, but every Sunday his mum takes him to church and his behavior just changes. He's an angel in that church, and that's what we do. So we do have the digital natives coming through our doors, but due to the space, their attitudes change, their behavior changes slightly from how they consume content in the YouTube space. So I think that's one key thing to remember, that actually because it's worked on YouTube and it's got 10 million hits, that should work in all four. It doesn't necessarily translate in that way. So I think it's very much, I think one thing I would say is definitely go and watch the shorts and watch what Channel 4 is doing overall to find those spaces. Another one I'll talk to you about briefly is the Black Lesbian Handbook, which was really interesting. I'll talk to you about this because I think one of the key things is not to mistake personal finish. So essentially, it seems like quite a niche subject area, but actually it's about a subculture, and it's about female empowerment, and it's about these women telling their story their way, and us not editorializing that, but being in that moment with them and allowing them, giving them a platform to share the story. And that's what took it. So it's got the great title, Black Lesbian Handbook, but once you go in and get beneath the surface, there's a broader story there at heart. And I think that's key, to always find what broadens this out. So yes, Man vs. Wave is a great example that Jody's commissioned, and actually it's about this man taking on, I guess, the biggest waves in the world. And it's not just about the waves, it's about people and extremities and people taking on large feats, and that's what helps to broaden that out and getting under the skin of that and understanding the psychology of one that attempts to do such things. Would you like to talk about some of the...
Yeah, it's also like with Man vs. Wave, which saw a clip of there, it's like, what's the Channel 4 approach of to tackling like extreme sports. And actually, there's loads of amazing videos on YouTube where it's just someone mountain biking, you know, like Danny McCaskill or someone, you know, up a mountain or something. And with that, we thought, how do we balance actually? Yeah, that makes a brilliant one-off video, but we're not really in the business of doing one-off shorts. We want to do series. Filmmaker in Northern Ireland called Graham Little, who I got talking to about Man vs. Wave, because he had connections with Al Menny, who's the kind of menacing-looking bearded chap in a wetsuit on the left, and actually doing a series which had the kind of spectacle of filming a guy who has stripped all the pleasures away from surfing. It's not the sort of beautiful sunlit Hawaiian beaches of you know, paddling off in speedos and surfing some waves. He jet skis out a mile into the ocean and then you know, almost gets killed every day riding these massive waves. So with that, it's a balance of spectacle, which is perfect for a one-off film, but there's also theory and science behind it, and you know, it's all the experts he talks to about finding the biggest waves and how he survives them and all of that. So it's the sort of Channel 4 approach of how you can add to something that's quite popular, which is these sort of extreme sports videos, but also have enough content to have 4 episodes that is sort of uniquely defined enough to stand up by themselves. Another way we sometimes work is there might be themes that we feel are kind of missing or we think our audience would like. There are a couple of subjects that it's asked quite a few production companies just to have a think about, and sometimes this happens. It might be that you pitch something and I say, that's really good, can you go and think about this and come back in a few weeks? And I'd asked a few people to think about, it would be really good to do a series which is about how relationships work, or how pulling works, or sex in a kind of more visceral sense, which isn't a, you know, when you see those sort of subjects on TV, scripted reality shows are quite chaste, even though they're all kind of flirty and a bit kind of carry on in a way, but you don't really see anything about how real people meet. Similarly, you know, dating shows are game shows where the prize is a holiday with someone you've just met. You know, they're not really, they don't reflect the way people are kind of meeting. They don't reflect, you know, Tinder or that whole kind of culture of dating now. So 2020 pitched this idea, which is how to pull, which was kind of a naughty idea of people who think they have a specific technique, and hidden camera, they go out and demonstrate whether it works or not. And they're all real people. We had one pickup artist in the mix, but we didn't want to turn it into a kind of Daft Laugh style show. But like, this is one guy who's there above the 4 logo called Bradley, who's a gay guy, and his whole challenge is he likes to go and try and pull straight men. So he goes to, he says, you know, gay clubs are too easy. Any gay guys, you go up to them, of course they'll have sex with you, but it's the straight ones that are the real forbidden fruit. So his video, he's very unsuccessful in a straight bar trying to pick up guys. It's quite funny and revealing. And then, and that was made by 2020, and it shows the sort of diversity of suppliers. At 2020, obviously, they make things like First Dates for us. They're a big old indie owned by Warner's, but for them and, you know, many of the bigger indies, their development teams think it's really exciting that they can flex their muscles in a space they haven't been before, and you know, and rather than, there's the bigger prize, obviously, of getting a series commission away on Channel 4, but it's there's often ideas they'd love to do, but just don't really work for long form, that you know, that are just perfect for us. And I think our approach is you have to look at short form as a different medium altogether. They're not little TV shows, or they're not. Disabled Fight Club is a bit kind of different, but generally, if someone and it has happened where someone's pitched a long form show and they said, how about we do this for short form? It's like, well, if the subject matter is interesting, just like people with disabilities fighting, there's probably a short form version of that, but your format, your massive kind of sprawling 60-minute format cannot be compressed down into 5 minutes. But if there's something, if there's access, you know, to interesting people or subject matter there might be an alternative way of doing it that works for us. We also work with other films that are quite interesting, like Internet Famous, which you saw the clip of, the girl who said she quit a job as a reporter to run a YouTube channel. And that came about quite differently as well, where we were talking to Stylehall, who are a multi-channel network, so their job is they have a big network of different vloggers, mainly style vloggers, but also some sort of boys who do comedy as well on YouTube. And via talking to them, they pitched a series which was kind of behind the scenes of what it's actually like to be someone with a couple of million subscribers and to have eyeballs on your life the whole time. So we made a series that sort of profiles 6 quite unique young people. And there's something that's I think all of our stories, there's a kind of warmth and positivity, I think, to all of them. That's often how we try and approach things, that like the YouTube vloggers are all quite aspirational in that they've turned their lives into a career. And another show, Rich Kids Goes Shopping, which is the guy, somewhere for that is the guy by the car there. And when we started talking about that, it kind of started out as a Rich Kids of Instagram idea, which is if you know it's about people with obscene wealth, kind of showing that off online. So there's a blog by the way called Rich Kids of Instagram where people just sort of catalogue how ridiculously wealthy they are. It started in that kind of place, and then it sort of shifted almost by accident into more obtainable wealth. And we had stories about this guy here who is a supercar fan, and he started off going around neighbourhoods that were wealthy and had lots of Lamborghinis and Ferraris driving around. And he just recorded them on his phone and put them on YouTube. And he grew a following, and now it's his career to kind of gonzo-style film supercars in different neighbourhoods, and he gets invited by Audi and Ford to go and test drive their cars. So it's actually for a lot of young people, that's turning a passion into something that makes money. Also, you saw in that clip, it was the boy who made 14 grand doing a black market tuck shop in a school that didn't allow Mars bars, basically. And so he's made a wodge of cash, and then someone from Australian Dragons Den really weirdly gave him a load of money saying, you remind me of me when I was young, have a load of cash to get you, to do what you like with, hoping he'd start, I suppose, a young business, but I think he's just kind of blowing it on Rolexes. We kind of started at the point of actually, is it more interesting to have people who are, obscenely wealthy and unobtainable, but actually bring it to the more kind of obtainable, when you are really young, viewer base of like 16 to 24-year-olds is the largest sort of slab. It's really interesting to find people like, actually, he's kind of like me, and I wish I had, I thought of that when I was at school, or I wish I could turn my passion into a career. So I think at the heart of all these, there's something quite aspirational about them. Similar to like the body mods and tattoo films we've commissioned have done really well. And one thing that was interesting about that is that communities of blogs and forums who are into tattoos looked at those films and were able to say, hold on, the broadcaster's commissioned a show about tattoos that isn't taking the piss out of tattoos. It's like, it's respecting it, it's giving the people the space to say, I like that. Out of the wins we show that footage of the Hello Kitty thing being gouged out of someone's arm, and it's kind of non-judgmental. We're not judging the people for their choices in life, and that's where we want to kind of be. It's up to the viewer to decide whether it's a good or bad thing, really.
And I think just to echo what Jody's saying, I think the main thing to take away from all of this is that we're in the business for a range of style of docs. So there is massive opportunity for different spaces, from tattoos to great extreme sports to how can you infuse tech in documentary storytelling. So the drone series is done really well. And I think there's just that opportunity for a range. So it doesn't have to be the traditional way of telling docs that we're all used to. I think this is an opportunity to play and experiment and essentially uncover interesting stories, subcultures, and techniques as well that have not been used yet. I did see your hand up there, sir. Not being dismissive. We're just going to take questions at the end, if that's okay. So I think, yeah, there's a massive opportunity and range for different styles of docs, and we're in the business of looking at them and fishing for them, essentially. So in that, what I'll do is just now talk about tone slightly. So As you can see, this lovely side boob with this lovely tattoo, really interesting, very grabby. And essentially, I think it just talks about the tone and where we want to be. So shorts are insightful, rich in revelation, and in positive good humour. They're led by engaging characters and passionate participants, not presenters. So essentially, we want people that own their stories. Recently, I've seen a great doc series where Reggie Yates ends up in Russia and South Africa. We wouldn't want that, because that's a traditional presenter, and essentially he's not owning that story, just a mere vehicle in. Whereas if there was someone that was completely passionate about that, and they spend their lives campaigning, i.e. a Carla, that may be interesting. My favourite image. I'm actually going to get one of these when we leave here.
We're going to do it on the train back, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going to do it on the train back. So we like to tell it like it is, because the viewer knows what's what. So I guess the interesting thing is we didn't spend 3 minutes justifying or explaining what scarification is. We just got into the person's story, essentially. And it's about this moment here. Because we believe the audience is not stupid, and we don't want to patronize them. So it's not about spending your first 15 or 10 seconds or even 30 seconds setting up. Scarification is when one X, Y, Z. I think your digital native will essentially press pause, Google scarification if they don't know what it is, get a short synopsis on it, and then come back and finish watching the video, and it puts it into context for them. So I think don't waste time essentially trying to set up things that you may assume one may not understand. I think assume that they do understand and just get to the core of the story, the heart of the story. It's a good night out. Humour and humans are at the heart of our stories. So it's all about finding things that are joyful and essentially getting to the core of that human story. I think that's very self-explanatory. And we're in the moment, just to echo what Jody said earlier, and we're not here to judge. So essentially, we leave it up to the viewer to make their decision on how they feel about the piece, whether it's actually Black Lesbian Handbook, Black lesbians are incredible, or actually this is a bit weird. We don't editorialize that, we just allow the viewer to explore the world in a new way.
Oh, let's talk about the promo as well, because we kind of think of, there's almost 2 levels of success when something's pitched or when we publish something. There's, you know, hopefully it's a good enough film that when people watch one, they'll watch another and another. But then we also have to think about the proposition itself, and is it attractive enough that people will actually want to watch it in the first place? And so looking at this is a grab from channel4.com, but it looks really similar on mobile and on your smart TV and everywhere, that our shorts will sit shoulder to shoulder with our biggest program brands. So this was a grab from a few weeks ago, and we have 24 Hours in A&E, you know, award-winning, long-running, well-respected drama, documentary, rather. Next to that is Ballot Monkeys, which was new that week. New comedy, really heavily marketed, and then next to that you have a little old short that no one's heard of. So we play in that space, and we have to have promos and propositions that kind of punch above their weight, so that when someone's coming thinking, oh, I missed last night's Hollyoaks, I'm going to go and watch that on catch-up, they see that and think, oh, this looks interesting, I'll try that first, and then I'll go and watch Hollyoaks. And so what we have to, so we badge all of our shorts, so it's, you see at the top there's a little starburst that says shorts 3 minutes, so it's telling people it's not going to take long to watch, why don't you just sample it. And it's also, it marks them on our platform as quite different to all of our long form programs. And even at the pilot stage now, that when we commission a pilot, it's not a case of you delivering a film and saying, here's your film, hope you like it, can we do 5 more? We're also asking for you to supply an image, a title, and some text to go with it as well. And that's not something we're going to judge you on and turn your series down by. It's normally obviously we look at all the data of what works and what doesn't and what kind of keywords work. So we'll work with you with that. But it's really important to have that button that's really attractive and really clickable. And this is an example. I use this example because Rich Kids Go Shopping has been one of our best performing series. And I think it's the combination of, it's a ridiculous title, to be honest, Rich Kids Go Shopping. It describes exactly what it's about. It's someone who's young, wealthy, and goes on a shopping spree and buys something. This story is about a boy who goes and buys this ridiculous golden Audi.
BMW.
And what's that?
It's a BMW.
Oh, is it a BMW? Okay, it's a Beamer. Anyway, you see that and you think, what the fuck? There's a Porsche behind it, but it looks like it's in a kind of normal courtyard. He looks quite young and he's got a golden car. So it's sort of goading you to click it. And then it has this strap line, which is really personal. It's not a description of what the program is about. It's actually really talking to the viewer, saying they're young, smart, and have more money than you. So it's kind of saying, like, yeah, these people have the audacity to probably be younger and more wealthy than you, won't you click? Which is quite different to the other two promos, which are probably brands people know and are more of a description about what that show is. So when you're coming in and saying, what's that political comedy I saw advertised last night? Oh yeah, that is Ballot Monkeys. They're sort of reaffirming your expectations, while you know, our short form promos have to sort of set those expectations. So yeah, over to you.
So I'll just talk about a little bit, and just to actually add to what Jody just said about our promos, I think what's really interesting in that space is, in that carousel area, for me, I just always felt like Rich Kids Go Shopping feels like something that's been on TV that I've missed and I didn't know about. So there's this element of mystery. What have I missed out? And one of our things that we have learned is this idea of the digital native FOMO, fear of missing out, and this idea of FOBO, fear of being offline. So essentially, for me, it was a great combination of, and I think, personally, this is how I always tell the Yendies this, is actually that title is a great title that makes you think, oh, this was on there and I've missed it because it's in a carousel against other assets that are in TV. That thumbnail would make an incredible Instagram picture, slap a few filters on it, and I'm sure you're going to get 20,000, 30,000 likes. And actually, that synopsis reads as a brilliant tweet that you may see on your Twitter feed saying they're richer than you, smarter than you, and make more money than you, ... bit.ly link, click. So I think there's a real skill in thinking in that digital native way, essentially, and when comprising how you put your docs together. So essentially, I'll just tell you the things that are no's for us at the moment. So this is an online channel, not a pilot scheme for television. Some things do accidentally end up in that space, but essentially, the purpose of it's an art form of its own, and we like to respect it as such. Don't mistake personal for niche, which I mentioned slightly earlier. So just always find the way to broaden that story, I think is key for us. We don't want talking heads, whimsy art films, or illustrated audio tracks. So I guess that's quite self-explanatory. We love to feature familiar faces, but only if they're authentically connected to content. So actually, maybe some of you may have access to incredible talent, and actually, what are their passion points? So rather than crowbarring them into a format, essentially, what is their passion point, and can we springboard off of this? One that's done really well for us is Guy Martin in this space. And his passion, we all know, is automobiles and things moving really quickly. So it did brilliantly in this space because it felt genuine and authentic. We mostly avoid stories that date fast or need to be played out in a specific moment. So essentially, as Jody mentioned earlier, we're in the space of doing things that feel current, not topical, essentially. And we tend to avoid sequential and episodic narrative. So essentially, the main reason for that is actually people choose to watch the content in whatever order they want, so we don't label it episode 1, 2, 3. It doesn't work in that linear way. So it's great to keep each ep self-contained, essentially, using your, in Jody's case, Rich Kids Go Shopping as your hanger to fit all these episodes into your series.
So just some points on, to recap on what we're looking for right now. They're not really specifics, they're sort of general areas or rules. So the audience is young, so we're looking for stories for 16 to 34-year-old British viewers, and they'll be watching it first and foremost on all four. Our shorts are available globally, but it's the British audience that is our heartland. That's what we're aiming for. We want positive, smart and entertaining shows about specific aspects of popular youth culture. And secondly, warm journeys into contemporary subcultures. That's the one thing that most of our films have in common. And as you saw from that, that trail as well, we have a series coming up about cosplay. We have another series about esports and pro gaming. So they're all, as we said, potentially niche areas that you can make quite broad and interesting by taking a different approach to it. So this is the important slide, how you get in touch. You basically just email this. The things to remember are what we quite like, and we really like top lines. You don't need to spend ages working on your 20-page pitch or PowerPoint presentation. It's fine to send us a couple of paragraphs on ideas, because it may well be that we have already stuff in development in that space, for instance, or it may be something we've explored and turned down. So we of course want ideas that you're really passionate about. So don't send us 20 ideas as a kind of scattergun approach. Please send us you know, one or two that you really want to make. And having some top lines is absolutely fine. And then if one of them piques our interest, we can say, brilliant, I'd love more info on that, come back, you know, flesh it out a bit more, send us 1 or 2 pages on it, or maybe come in for a meeting. And I was in a session yesterday, and someone asked in the audience that, look, I'm a solo filmmaker, do I really have any chance of you ever commissioning me? And the answer is yeah, and a lot of our filmmakers, you know, maybe like a third we've worked with, haven't worked with Channel 4 or a broadcaster before. So we judge all ideas equally. It's all on, you know, obviously it's on the strength of the ideas and our confidence in your ability to deliver them. So we love links as well. So if you've got some previous work to share, do send with your ideas. You know, here's a show reel, or here's something I've made recently, just to see what so we can see what your actual kind of track record and style is. If we really like the idea and you don't have that, it's not much of a punt for us to give you a bit of money to do a pilot. So it's really about that idea. Yeah, absolutely, please do pitch ideas. I think that pretty much wraps it up, does it? And
can I just add one more thing? I think one of the things for us this year as well that's really core and important is this idea of diversity on and off screen. So I think when pitching your ideas as well, really think about who's going to be on screen, who's going to be off screen, how does that work? And I think diversity meaning regions, people from different ethnic backgrounds, and I think we just really want to champion a new sense, telling a new British narrative essentially, and delving into different areas that haven't been uncovered before, and essentially that's very attractive to us, I would say. So I think that's one of the things to also consider. Just think regional, think big, think
diverse.
Yeah, think diverse essentially. I think don't pigeonhole yourself into things that have necessarily been done before, so you feel that works, or because that works, we're going to take that. No, essentially we're looking for fresh, innovative new ideas. And I know I've been in these sessions before where I hear that line churned out, and then I'm like, great, I'm going to send an email. And I feel like nothing happens. But
it's that thing, we always say try not to second guess commissioners. It's like, oh, yeah. What does he want? Like, okay, let's give him what he wants. Rather than, we just want to hear what you want to really make, yeah, and what you think will work for our audience. And which is actually why we don't have an order list at the moment either. You know, we've been quite broad, rather than saying, you know, we're looking for an idea about X and an idea about Y, where we get everything quite the same. Hopefully this has given you a bit of a flavour of the type of stuff that really works well for us, to stimulate you to pitch stuff.
So, can we change the lighting arrangement so it's a bit more equal? So that, thank you. So that if anybody, I hope at least one person has got questions. I think we have got a few minutes to have a conversation or take any questions or clarifications that we have. So, and just to remind you, if you want to ask any of us, particularly, I'm Richard, Isaac, and that's Jody.
Okay, well, I guess for Isaac and Jody commissioning, it seems that you want themed series. I mean, I work at Staffordshire University with a lot of great new talent, and obviously this is perfect for new and upcoming talent, but how much do you want themed things, or if we had a series of 6 individual great ideas, would you be interested?
Sorry, can you rephrase that?
Would you want them themed, or, you know, like, yeah, 6 unique profiles of young people, or 6 quite different ideas, but from the same house, if you like?
Well, every series has a title, so this is the series about, because we also really think about how people share these as well. So it's like, have you seen that series about, you know, about rich people, or about people out in the pool, or about that guy who surfs massive waves? And so there needs to be some kind of connecting theme, really.
Okay.
Also, worth saying actually, we try, even though many of these are actually kind of profiles, we try and we don't really want things that are very profile-y. We don't want people who are sitting down talking about who they are. We think with all of our films, it's about people getting up and doing something. So you learn about them via them actively doing something, rather than, so don't pitch anything which is, this is an interesting person, they're going to sit down and talk about it. But if yeah, we're open to, and similarly, if it's a collective of films made by different people, so long as we have, you know, one point of contact there, that can work as well.
And actually, just to echo what Jody said, I've actually been talking to the Screen Institute, who work closely with the BFI and have a production company, and actually they've pitched an idea to me along those lines where they found a hangar. I can't go into too much detail without giving it, but they found a hangar for their series, and actually every film is individual within that. So I think, yes, to answer to your question is yes. If it were called Sheffield Dockfest, and in that you had 6 very different films that can work as long as it feeds into that title of Sheffield Dockfest. So it may explore catering in Sheffield versus nightlife in Sheffield versus, that's actually a bad example because it's still honed in. Example, Raw Britain. So if the title was Raw Britain, actually I could do a film about a family of black sheep in the family. So actually everyone in the family is quite organized, but mum still likes to rave, versus legal highs in another episode, which is completely disconnected but fits into this idea of Raw Britain.
Just wait for the microphone.
Hi, I'm Nadav. I'm a filmmaker. I wanted to ask if you ever use this platform in any sense in relation with what's on TV as well, either promoting from TV to here or additional content related to TV programs, if there's ever any relationship across the two media.
Yeah. So definitely yes. In fact, we'll have a whole other thing we do that we call extras that we're sort of not talking about, and they'll tend to come from the production of the show. So I referred to The Tribe, and there'll be a load of extras to do with The Tribe on All 4. So they happen in kind of the slipstream of the production of the programme itself. But more relevantly, in the room, we somewhat related to the question we had before actually, we like to create, when we can, create thematic connections. Because, of course, I described who uses All 4. Well, the truth is, no matter what I was saying about Cut-Up TV, basically the audience of All 4 is informed by what was on the television yesterday, right? So if we've got a big season on TV about something, then that audience is going to come to All 4 the next day or around that moment on TV to watch those programs on catch-up. So we actively pursue. Again, sadly, I can't give you the example I want to give you, but let me put it like this. Whereas in the past, Channel 4 and other broadcasters have maybe done a special themed Saturday night about something or other, what we'll see later this year is that the theme will be a Saturday night on TV and all week on All 4, okay? So we're going to theme it across platforms. So it's a genuinely multi-platform commissioning strategy. And so we'll commission short programs in the same theme and sort of micro season as the television shows are commissioned. So there'll be thematic connection, which is super relevant, and that's when sometimes we will have an order list. We'll go to indies and we'll go, right, okay, we want to create a lot of noise around this topic. What have you got? The other thing to mention is what we term extensions. Now we haven't got any on the screen there. But if you were to go to All 4 Today, for example, you'd see the short that is in the promotional spot that Jody was talking about is it has a connection with Made in Chelsea. It might be In Bed with Jamie, or it might be another one, but because there are a couple going on. The point about In Bed with Jamie and Educating Binky is another one we did, Binky being a character in Made in Chelsea, is that they're from that same story world, but they're not made in Chelsea. They've got their own title. They sit as kind of sibling series, but obviously with the audience inherited from the parent series in that, or from the sibling series in that case. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm developing something just now with your colleagues that sort of sits in that. I don't know if it's an extra or what it's going to be called. I actually have to find out. But it's come about by chance, and I'm wondering, with those things that you're maybe more actively looking for, how we can find out what they are and therefore know what you're specifically interested in at a given time. Or if that's not possible.
Yeah, it's so
are you making a long? Sorry, Richard. Are you making a long form show for Channel 4?
The personal thing was that I was making VTs part of a long form thing, and they've now been separated off, and I'm now making them for online. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to be placed yet.
Well, because this is a specific case, you probably just
no,
sort of chat after.
But that's not what I'm asking about that case. I'm asking about generally with that kind of content that relates to specific themes that you're working with, how we can know what those specific themes are so we can approach with specific related ideas.
Yeah, well, the answer to the second question is, well, once you've been in touch on the radar and we're briefing, this is less of a briefing, more of a kind of explanation of what's what, then we would brief to you via commissioning editors, say, right, okay, what it is we've got a big thing about extreme sport all week on all forums on a Saturday night on Channel 4, not the actual example, and have you got anything in your cupboard that we could talk about? So that's a question of just being in contact. To the first point, I'll just pick up on it, it's quite interesting. What we're actively trying to do is where there are things that would historically have been extras, i.e. you watch this show and, oh, by the way, there's this other stuff that you might be interested in that we just have left over. One of our team is specifically trying to elevate them, to go back and go, why should it be that? Why shouldn't this be a show? Why shouldn't we make a show out of this and get it up and elevate it to the point where it stands on its own 2 feet and it's a short? So it may be, and we can have this chat afterwards if you like, that what you've got could be, you know, we could give it more energy and make a short out of it rather than just oh, by the way, there's this as well.
Great, thank you.
And just to add to that, I think one of the things to be mindful of is, I think be careful of watching Channel 4, see Made in Chelsea characters, knowing that we've commissioned Educate and Binky and In Bed with Jamie and then pitching, I can do this with this character, because actually Monkey Kingdom, who make Made in Chelsea, essentially own that real estate and own those characters, and it gets into muddy waters. So I think even though we're working in that space in that way, I think pick your talent carefully and just be mindful that you're not stepping on another production's toes.
You need to have access to them already, don't you, when you pitch it?
Okay, we're nearly at the end, but there's one question at the front row, and then afterwards, please stay and ask your question, because we'd really like to answer it, but we're going to get turfed out.
Hi, my name's Donna. My question is about, you mentioned that 2/3 of people are watching your content on their tablets or iPhones. I'm very interested in virtual reality technology, and would you be interested in, I think this would work perfectly for ideas I've got for virtual reality documentaries, because it actually at the moment really only works in short form because of the technology capacity, and I think possibly a year down the road everyone is going to have a Samsung that they can put into that a virtual reality contraption, or could viably. But right now, it's you know, you have to line up in a queue down at that room because, you know, not everybody has. So what is your opinion on that, and would you consider commissioning something for VR?
So I'll just take that quickly. So we would like to have the conversation, but not because of shorts so much, just because of in Channel 4's remit and our license, we are the innovators in chief. So yes, if you've got a good story, then the innovation in form that is virtual reality is something of interest to maybe not, could be us, but to Channel 4, yes, why not? Yes, why not? One more? What do you think? This chap near the back, hi. Oh yeah, you need to wait for the microphone because it's being recorded.
Do you work with producers from the United States? If there's a British connection to the story, would you work with producers from the United States?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I send an email then to that email up there?
Do it.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Right.
I think we judge on the story.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for asking. Okay, I think we best stop, otherwise we'll get told off. Thanks for staying, thanks for coming. Hope to hear from you.